Although the death penalty can be seen as a way to teach a lesson to the prisoners and give the grieving families closure, when people end up being executed, the executions could turn out badly, and many people are convicted wrongly and end up dying for a crime they didn't commit. As of June 11, 2020, capital punishment is legal in 28 U.S. states, according to CNN, meaning that it is legal to execute someone in more states than it is not, Tennessee being one of those states. CNN also states that in 2019, 22 people in the United States were executed, while the number of death sentences imposed was 34. More than half of the people that agreed to their execution ended up being executed last year. They also state that there are 2,260 people on death row in the United States as of January 1st, 2020. The reasons that the death penalty should be abolished are that many times executions turn out to be botched, and there are many wrongfully convicted prisoners who are put on death row and end up being executed. One may argue that the death penalty should not be abolished because it can be seen as a justification for their wrongdoings. To start off, even people who do agree with the death penalty would also agree that it should be performed humanely, and lots of times executions aren't. According to the Death Penalty Information Center, since 1890, there have been 276 known botched executions. Also, according to the Death Penalty Information Center, on May 4, 1990, in Florida, Jesse Joseph was executed by electrocution. During the execution, 6-inch flames erupted from Joseph's head, and 3 bolts of power were required to stop his breathing. State officials claimed that the botched execution was caused by an inadvertent human error, the inappropriate substitution of a synthetic sponge for a natural sponge that had been used in previous execution. They attempted to support this theory by sticking a part of a synthetic sponge into a common household toaster and observed that it smoldered and caught fire. This is just one example of the many botched executions that have occurred throughout the years. On the other hand, some might think that executions should not be abolished because they can be seen as a justification for the prisoner's wrongdoing. According to the ACLU, the death penalty system in the United States is applied in an unfair and unjust manner against people largely dependent on how much money they have, the skill of their attorneys, race of the victims, and where the crime took place. People of color are far more likely to be executed than white people, especially if the victim is white. Even though some might say that the death penalty is a justification of the inmates' wrongdoings, it is not, because who gets put on death row sadly has a major role in their social standings and color of their skin. But even though some might say that executions are justifiable for the prisoner's action, many people are falsely accused and end up being put on death row. According to Time.com, the estimate of wrongful convictions is 4.1%, or approximately twice the number actually exonerated and set free from death row. This means that there are approximately 120 out of 3,000 inmates who are put on death row when they may not be guilty. Not only does this mean that many people end up dying for a crime they did not commit, even if they do end up getting off death row, they may still be in prison for the rest of their life. Time also states that wrongfully convicted inmates are serving life in prison after their death sentences were reduced over technical legal errors. In conclusion, the death penalty should be abolished because there have been many times where the executions have gone wrong. It should also be abolished because of all the wrongfully convicted inmates who still suffer the consequences, whether they end up being executed or stuck in prison for the rest of their life. The death penalty also goes against the First Amendment, which states life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This also shows that the death penalty should be abolished because it goes against one of the founding documents for our country.